Folks, how we doing? This session of the Minnesota Senate Subcommittee on Veterans from Monday, March 3rd, 2025 is now in order. Thanks for being here, everybody. We have a very full calendar today. Our first bill will be Senate File 1894, that's me. Then we'll have another bill from me on Veteran Service Officer Grant Programs stuff, Senate File 1452. Then Senator Howe will present Senate File 1930. Then Senator Farnsworth will present Senate File 1782. A lot of these bills have a lot of folks who want to talk about them, so I'm going to ask us all to be as efficient as we possibly can in our presentations of information. And then let's get started.
Oh, is it? You know, there's a way to fix this. Oh, look at that. A little bit better. Way better. MDVA's going to go first. So it's just these two. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Okay. Senator Putnam, Senate File 1894, if you would like to begin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for hearing this bill. And for giving us an opportunity to talk it through. I want to acknowledge at the outset that this is our first stop in talking about this, and our ambition is to head to judiciary, where everyone will be relaxed and there will be no changes or conversation at all whatsoever, because that's how judiciary rolls. Today, we're hoping for some feedback and some thoughtful dialogue about a phenomenon known as claim sharks. That's a very vivid descriptor, and my understanding is that the shark notion can also be accurate in some circumstances. We have folks out there in Minnesota right now who are taking advantage of our veterans, using them for profit when we should instead be revering them. Clearly, some claim sharks do help veterans, and that's really important. And that's why we're trying not to do anything that causes them any sort of inconvenience or difficulty. We are just putting in some responsible accountability measures. We're talking a lot about accountability these days. I think we should talk about it today, too. This bill makes the following changes. First, it requires anyone who provides vets benefits services to be accredited by the USVA. 2, those who do this work must provide a written fee agreement. 3, those who do this work must not guarantee benefits. And 4th, there are some provisions for penalties in case bad actors are being bad actors. Now, that's an important point, because I think today there's a really good chance we're going to hear the phrase bad apples a couple times. We're going to hear that not everyone is exploiting or taking advantage of vets, many of whom are seniors. We're going to hear that that's not the case for every single person who does that work, and that may be true. It is certainly true that there are good actors out there, but we have a responsibility to create basic fundamental guardrails to make sure that those bad actors don't get away with what they're doing. So let's not be susceptible to that argument that because there are good people and bad people who do this work, we're supposed to do nothing. That's an unacceptable argument in this case. Secondly, we might hear that it's going to restrict veterans' choice. In no way is that ambition of this bill. We are intending, in fact, just to make those choices more reliable. That's what this bill is actually going to do. And those statements I just mentioned are more assertions than arguments. I'm actually interested to hear more substantial data and more substantial conversation on this issue today, Mr. Chair. So that is what Senate File 1894 does.
All right, and with that, I'd like to call up our first testifier, which will be John Kelly. And Ron Quaid, if you want to come up as well and take 2 seats up there.
Nice tie.
And you can just state your name and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Chair and members. For the record, my name is John Kelly, and I serve as the Director of Government Affairs for the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs. With me today is Ron Quaid, who serves as our Director of Veterans Services. MDVA appreciates the Chair bringing forward a standalone version of the Governor's policy provisions that make updates to the current disclosure law and are also traveling in the Governor's budget bill for the Department. Senate File 1894 is an important bill and a necessary one. I'm going to provide a brief summary of the bill and then turn it over to Director Quaid for further testimony. Government affairs, services providers, and state leaders of the nonprofit veteran services organizations that make up the Minnesota Commanders Task Force are also noting increased activities by for-profit providers offering to assist in the filing of disability benefits claims with the VA for users' fees or in exchange for an excessive percentage of the benefits secured. Despite what you may have heard in meetings or in the letters of opposition to this bill, Senate File 1894 does not seek to block veterans from paying for veterans benefit services. It simply seeks to prevent bad actors from doing business here in Minnesota. If passed, veterans here in our state would still be able to utilize for-profit companies and attorneys if they are accredited by the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Many of the companies that are widely known as claim sharks are attempting to draw a legal distinction between providing advice to veterans about the information needed to substantiate their claims and filing the claim under their own name. However, this is a distinction without a difference, as both types of work are in furtherance of the preparation and presentation of VA benefit claims and are prohibited under current federal law without first achieving VA accreditation. Current Minnesota law requires individuals who offer veterans benefit services to clients in exchange for compensation, typically private and for-profit providers, to provide written disclosure statement to each client or prospective client. Veterans benefit services are the services that a veteran or family member of a veteran might reasonably use to obtain veterans benefits from government entities, including state, federal, state, or counties. The law currently requires a written disclosure statement that had been developed by the Commissioner of Veterans Affairs to be offered to the client. The disclosure statement serves as a method to notify veterans that they can receive veterans benefit services at no cost from nonprofit, federally chartered veteran service organizations, the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs, and the Minnesota County Veteran Service Officers, with the mandate that a signature by the client confirming their receipt and understanding that can be obtained by the private or nonprofit provider. Providers who fail to comply with this section currently are subject to a civil penalty up to $1,000 for each violation. While this was an important step by the legislature in 2017 to help protect veterans from claims predators, there have been additional steps taken at the federal level that should be incorporated into statute. This bill adds in a requirement, as the chair mentioned, I won't repeat it, that there's an accreditation, there comes with a fee agreement, as well as some other changes. They're prohibiting the guarantee of benefits and making the violation an unlawful practice under 325F. Now that you've heard the what of the bill, I would turn it over to my colleague, Director Ron Quaddy, for the why.
Thank you, Mr. Quaddy. You can just state your name and then begin your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Chair and members. For the record, my name is Ron Quaddy. I serve as the Director of Veterans Services for the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs. I have worked in advocacy since 2005, starting with the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs Claims Division in St. Paul, now managing all of the claims and field operations divisions for the state of Minnesota. I am confident in reporting we are a premium service provider and the finest claims division with a high emphasis on quality, empathy, and a tireless drive for representing Minnesota veterans and their families in an honest and ethical manner. The department is bringing forward this bill to strengthen the important legislation from 2017 that established the current disclosure law in Chapter 197. While this was an important step, we believe we need stronger guardrails in place to protect Minnesota veterans and their families from claims predators, or as you've heard, claim sharks, or dare I say, there is also the phrase pension poacher out in our business. A critical component of this bill is requiring claims agents and attorneys providing veteran benefit services are accredited by the Office of the General Counsel at the Washington, U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. We do not see this as a burdensome requirement. This is because to actually help a veteran or their family with the claim moving through the VA process or to represent them on their behalf, you must be an accredited representative with the Department of the VA. That is a requirement whether you are charging the veteran or acting on their behalf pro bono. There are two primary access points that come with VA accreditation that are critical when representing veterans' claims before VA. First, systems access to view the veteran's claims file. All accredited VSOs, attorneys, and claims agents may receive a PIV card, or personal identification card, which allows access into VA systems, mainly the Veterans Benefit Management System. There are many VA systems, but the primary one is VBMS. With this access, the VSO can see the entire veterans claims file, the appeals history, actions taken by VA personnel, notes, deferrals throughout the claims process. Without this access, an individual cannot effectively represent a veteran's claim. Secondly, accreditation allows VSOs and others to communicate directly with VA personnel on behalf of the veteran and their family members, even through handwritten communication, email, or Teams that the federal government offers us as a portal. This authorized communication is vital in quickly addressing VA concerns and VA errors. Unaccredited agents and organizations have no view access into the VA ecosystem, effectively making them blind to the claims process and unable to assist veterans with anything during the claims process, whereas VSOs with MDVA, our staff, are checking on these claims progresses daily. VA accredited individuals providing VA claims assistance shall faithfully execute their duties on behalf of VA claimants, be truthful in their dealings with claimants and the VA, provide claimants with competent representation before VA, act with reasonable diligence and the promptness in representing claimants. VA accredited individuals shall not violate the standards of conduct as described by the 38 Code of Federal Regulations, circumvent the rules of conduct through actions of another, engage in conduct involving fraud, deceit, misrepresentation, or dishonesty, violate one or more of the provisions of the Title 38 USC or Title 38 Code of Federal Regulations, enter into an agreement for, charge, solicit, or receive a fee that is clearly unreasonable or otherwise prohibited by law or regulation, solicit, receive, or enter into agreements for gifts related to representation provided before an agency or original jurisdiction has issued a decision on a claim or claims and a notice of disagreement has been filed with respect to that decision. Delay without good cause the process of a claim at any stage of the administrative process, mislead, threaten, coerce, or deceive a claimant regarding benefits or other rights under programs administered by the VA. Engage in or counsel or advise a claimant to engage in acts of behavior prejudicial to the fair and orderly conduct of administrative proceedings before the federal VA. Disclose without the claimant's authorization any information provided by VA for purposes of representation or engage in any other unlawful or unethical conduct. Accredited attorneys and claims agents can only take 20% of a back pay of an appeal. Anything more than that is considered unreasonable fee under 38 CFR 14.636E and likewise F. These are all important guardrails we see are needed to ensure that claims predators are not allowed to prey on our veterans and their family members. Currently, many of these non-accredited entities are purporting to represent veterans in a VA claims process. They are doing not in accordance with federal regulations. Calling themselves paid consultants does not remove them from the intent of the rule requiring accreditation. We have had numerous cases where MDVA had to assist veterans after they had interacted or entered into contracts with these organizations or representatives. Here is just one example. A veteran in northern Minnesota came to MDVA for help about 2 years ago. He, like many veterans, felt overwhelmed by VA claims process and found himself working with an unaccredited organization prior to MDVA. They told him if he did his claim with them, it would be a slam dunk, and it would be easy to get it granted. They did nothing other than hand him blank claims forms at a coffee shop and made him sign an agreement that would pay thousands of dollars after the claim was approved. The claim was eventually denied, but this individual and this organization still started sending the veteran repeated invoices for their service, even though they had done nothing other than charge a fee. When the veteran told them the claim was denied, he asked them why he still owed the money. They told him, "This is a mistake," but then continued to send invoices. The veteran eventually paid out of fear that these invoices that they claimed he didn't have to pay, but still kept coming in the mail, would ruin his credit. This is not an isolated incident or event. Similar stories to this have been repeated over the years, all with generally the same issue at hand: the promise that the veteran claim will be granted, agreement to a fee, claim is denied, and then the veteran finds out that they are still required to pay a fee. If they ask about the fee, it's a mistake, but the bills keep coming. MDVA worked with this veteran at no cost and eventually was successful in winning the claim, and the claim was awarded by the USDVA. It is experiences like these that lead the department to bring this bill forward. We believe that veterans' choice is important. We just want to make sure that organizations providing these services for compensation are helping veterans and not hurting them. SF 1894 puts those important guardrails in place. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to testify today before the committee. We hope you can support the bill that will help ensure Minnesota veterans getting benefits that they have earned, whether it is through MDVA, their CVSO, or an accredited representative, an attorney, or claims specialist. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quaddy. Next, we'd like to call up Christy Janago.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Anderson.
question. Are
Yes.
you waiting till all the testifiers before we ask questions, or are you going to just wait? I mean, sounds like you're going to go through all the testifiers. Is that your intent?
Senator Putnam, do you have a preference on Senator Anderson's question?
That's up to you, Mr. Chair. You got the hammer.
I'm fine if you have a question now that you want to ask. I think
Well,
that's fine.
the testifiers are already
Well, we
left.
can bring them back. Sure.
Okay. Well, we'll wait until later.
Okay. You may begin. State your name whenever you're ready.
Greetings, Chair and members. My name is Dr. Christy Janago, and I'm a third-generation Army veteran. I'm the American Legion Department of Minnesota Legislative Chair. As you may know, the Commander's Task Force, of which the Legion is a member, along with the 7 other congressionally chartered veteran service organizations, has unanimously chosen the issues dealt with in SF 1894 as one of their 5 key legislative priorities this year. I'm also the legislative chair for the Minnesota Association of County Veteran Service Officers, where I'm a dues-paying member because of my day job. I'm an assistant county veteran service officer where I help some of the state's most vulnerable veterans find housing, navigate their involvement with the justice system, and access life-changing benefits. Last fall, I was so proud that my efforts were part of the body of work that brought an effective end to veteran homelessness in Hennepin County. I would submit to you that this year, the contents of this bill are the most important issue you will deal with in this biennium and maybe even well beyond. In this moment, you are witnessing and taking part in history. This bill modifies the Veteran Benefits Disclosure Statute to require VA accreditation for those who want to represent veterans on federal VA benefits matters, and also makes it possible for veterans to recoup damages through legal means if they're taken advantage of by bad actors who made promises that they could not keep. We're asking those who intend to represent veterans on VA benefits matters to earn accreditation through the VA so that they're listed publicly as an attorney, a claims agent, or a VSO representative. Please allow me to share how I became an accredited VSO representative. While I do have a terminal degree, I did not go to school for this because you can't. My initial eligibility for my current position is the DD-214 I received for my Army service in the early 2000s. Once hired, I started to take some online VA modules called TRIP training, which takes about 2 full business days to complete if you're really focused. After that, I had to be sponsored by someone at the Veteran Benefits Administration to come down to the VA regional office at the federal building on Fort Snelling to apply for my personal identity verification card, or PIV card. It is how I can access the Veterans Benefits Management System, VBMS, to assist a veteran with tracking their claims. I also received training from the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs, who you just heard from, and my National Professional Association, the National Association of County Veteran Service Officers. You can find me at va.gov/OGC, apps, accreditation, under a search by my name. I have 5 VA accreditations: the American Legion, Disabled American Veterans, MDVA, the National Association of County Veteran Service Officers, and the Veterans of Foreign Wars. My work contact information is listed there, and my accreditation number, 53784, is also listed there. In this way, veterans can verify that I'm legitimate on VA benefits matters. To be good at this job, you have to have a keen interest in people and their stories. Veterans' stories are sacred to me. I retell them to the federal government in the form of a lot of paperwork in the pursuit of life-changing benefits for veterans who are down on their luck in every way conceivable. I explain to others in shorthand that my job is keeping veterans alive, under roofs, and out of jail. I am not exaggerating. It is just a simple reality of assisting homeless and justice-involved veterans on their claims. I've also gotten increasingly involved in claims dealing with military sexual trauma, mental health claims with past suicide attempts or even current suicidal ideation, and claims for veterans who are experiencing cognitive decline due to age, TBI, or other conditions. These types of claims take a high level of sensitivity, cultural competency, a trauma-informed mindset, kindness, and compassion, and not everyone can do that. I've gone some interesting places to work with veterans on their claims: the Union Gospel Mission's Men's Shelter, the Hennepin County Jail, domestic violence shelters, short-term stay hotels, veterans' homes, the streets. Chair and members, I love this work. I will babysit a claim, meaning that I will check in on all my claims at least once a week to see if there's any movement and to make sure I know when my veterans are due for compensation and pension exams that will decide their claim. I personally make sure they have transportation because, remember, I work with homeless and justice-involved veterans where the successful granting of VA benefits could literally mean the difference between life and death. As a VSO representative, it is unlawful for me to charge veterans to support them on their VA benefits claims. Recently, a veteran asked me to take her military sexual trauma claim. She had worked up the courage to call me and tell me her story to pursue her benefits 30 years after one of the most egregious things was done to her by another service member. She asked me if she needed to pay me to represent her on the claim. I said, "No, ma'am, my work for you is completely free." However, I recognize that some veterans may choose to pay an attorney or a claims representative for a certain result. But what bothers me, Chair and members, are when vulnerable veterans sign up to pay these fees. I have worked with homeless veterans who had signed a contract with a private attorney. I ask you, is it ethical for a private attorney or business to profit off a homeless veteran? This bill will not solve that, but it may help. Another thing that gets in the way of my work is the distortion of the facts that are created by aggressive online advertising and other platforms that have misled veterans and sown misinformation. I've had to debunk misinformation that claim sharks have perpetuated about the speed of claims, with veterans believing that an attorney or a private business could get them through it faster and to a 100% rating. That is unequivocally false. No matter who represents a veteran on federal benefits matters, it is not possible to speed up the VA or to guarantee a 100% rating. I could say so much more, but from the bottom of my heart, thank you for hearing this bill.
All right, thank you. Next up, we will have Ray Colas and also Ashley Berry. So I guess if you both want to come up and, oh, sorry, Ashley's virtual, so hold on that thought. We'll bring up Ray Colas and then we'll go online.
Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Ray Colas, and I'm here today on behalf of Veteran Benefits Guide in opposition to Senate Bill 1894 as currently written. Now, VBG, Veteran Benefits Guide, provides veterans with a private, legal, federally compliant service outside of the Veteran Affairs, helping to ensure veterans receive the benefits that they've earned. Now, we strongly support Senator Putnam's bill. However, there is one section in the bill that is very concerning to us, and it's as it applies to the accreditation piece. Now, we heard some of the stories from the testifiers just before us, and yes, they are correct. There are bad actors in this space. But it is our position that we separate the good from the bad, as opposed to eliminating the entire industry altogether. Now, there's an insinuation that we choose not to be accredited. Federal law states that no individual may act as an agent or attorney in the preparation, presentation, or persecution of any claim under laws administered by the Secretary without first being accredited. I'd like to state for the record, we do not practice law, we do not act as the veteran's agent, and we do not present before the VA. Federal law also states that VA-recognized VSOs and their representatives always provide their services on benefit claims free of charge, and that only VA-accredited attorneys and claim agents may charge fees for assisting in a claim for VA benefits. Simply put, as an accredited VSO or an accredited representative, there's no path for services such as our honorable for-profit companies to serve veterans, and that is our primary opposition to the bill. We support the protections other than that are placed in this bill, and in fact think that there are more protections that can be put in place that align more so with some of the predatory practices of that of the bad actors. It is just unfortunate to me that we can say to these vets, some of them who are committing suicide because they're not receiving the services that they are currently owed to them because of the current broken system, to then say a private industry should not exist because we don't believe a veteran should have to pay for these services. We agree in that veterans should not have to pay for these services. However, again, if they so choose to, and for as long as they are well informed, that should be an option that remains available to them as they are available to them today. So we would be more than happy to partner with you and Senator Putnam to strengthen this bill so that we can focus more so on those predatory practices while, again, leaving an option available for those veterans who choose to use a for-profit entity to secure their benefits. With that, I thank you for allowing me to provide testimony, and we would like to vote no on the bill as currently written.
Thank you, Mr. Colas. Next up on the line is Ashley Berry. If you could turn on your camera, state your name for the record, and then you can begin your testimony.
Yes, thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Ashley Berry, Senior the National Association for Veterans Rights. I'm testifying as an advocate for veterans and as someone who has spent years exposing the consequences of government inefficiency, both as an investigative journalist and as a federal senior executive at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs in D.C. I am here to strongly oppose Senate File 1894 as currently written, because I do believe it worsens an already overburdened system, ultimately harming the very individuals this legislation claims to protect. I ask you to consider amendments that protect veterans from predatory practices while preserving their right to seek help from qualified professionals that they trust, services they're willing to pay. Amendments could introduce transparency, accountability, most importantly, hope. As Ray said, separate the good from the bad. A decade ago, just a little bit of history, I was reporting for CBS News in Phoenix. I helped uncover the VA wait time scandal that shocked the nation. I reported on veterans who suffered and even died while waiting for benefits and for care. And that crisis was supposed to be a wake-up call. It was supposed to lead to real reform, and yet here we are, still waiting, still failing veterans, now considering legislation that I believe would take away their right to seek faster, more effective assistance. And I just want to throw some statistics out here. Minnesota is home to more than 285,000 veterans, but there are just under 300 VSO officers. That's available to assist them. So that means each VSO is responsible for more than 350 veterans. That's a completely unsustainable workload. And meanwhile, the VA's average wait time to process a claim in Minnesota is 152 days. And in contrast, private sector professionals, like those that are members of NAVR in many cases, help veterans receive decisions in just 85 days in some cases, and that's nearly 2 months faster. And that difference is more than just a statistic, it's a lifeline for veterans who can't afford to wait. So I appreciate the time to testify. I urge you to reject this bill as written. We believe that our veterans deserve better. They deserve choice, efficiency, and a system that works for them, not against them. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify today.
Okay, thank you. Next up is John Bloomstrom, who is also online. So you can turn on your camera, state your name for the record, and then begin your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, I'm actually on the road right now, so I will have to defer to my written testimony as I cannot safely go on camera and operate a motor vehicle.
Okay, your safety. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Then next up, we would have Brian Lewis. You can come up and begin your testimony.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Brian Lewis, and I'm testifying solely in my capacity as a licensed attorney and VA accredited attorney in the Twin Cities area. I work at a small firm by the name of Francis White Law, PLLC. The bulk of my practice involves practicing in military law, helping service members through separations boards, through medical boards, through anything to do with the military. And I also practice in assisting veterans with their VA claims appeals. However, since the passage of the Minnesota Statute 197.6091 in 2017, I have not taken a single case from the state of Minnesota. I also don't know any other attorneys who will take a case in the state of Minnesota for one reason. We cannot ethically say to potential clients in that disclosure statement that unlicensed and untrained laypersons, or what they prefer to call VSOs, are the legal equivalent of a licensed and VA accredited attorney. It's real simple. I can't make that statement ethically, and for that reason, I won't take a case in the state of Minnesota. However, the bill as currently drafted will go further and potentially make taking any case in Minnesota that has anything to do with veterans impossible. But I do want to clear up one misstatement that was made earlier, and I believe it was made by the Director of Veteran Services for MNDVA, was that attorneys are limited to a 20% fee. Attorneys and claims agents are limited to that. That is incorrect. The regulation that they quoted, 38 CFR 14.636F, specifically subparagraph 1, states as follows: fees which do not exceed 20% of any past due benefits awarded as defined in paragraph H3 of this section shall be presumed to be reasonable if the agent or attorney provided representation that continued through the date of decision awarding benefits. Fees which exceed 33 1/3% of any past due benefits awarded shall be presumed to be unreasonable. These presumptions may be rebutted through an examination of the factors in paragraph E of this section, establishing that there is clear and convincing evidence that a fee which does not exceed 20% of any past due benefits awarded is not reasonable, or that a fee which exceeds 33 1/3% is reasonable in a specific circumstance, close quote. So for any claim which I would take outside of the state of Minnesota, I can charge anywhere between 0 and upwards of 33 1/3%. What the bill currently before the committee seeks to do is put in quote unquote guardrails that have very little to do with what the goal is, which is a laudable goal. But let's start with the additions. Subdivision 3A of the bill, federal accreditation and fee agreement required. A person who provides veterans benefit services in exchange for compensation must be accredited, okay. The next problem. Subdivision 3A, Parent B. A person who refers in exchange for compensation a veteran or family member of a veteran to a provider of Veterans Benefits Services must be accredited by the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs under U.S. Code Title 38, Chapter 59. So the other attorney in my firm practices a lot of family law, specifically family law that involves veterans. If opposing counsel is relying on a veteran's benefits and seeks to get out what we call spousal maintenance out of veterans' benefits, are they then doing something that affects veterans' benefits and needs to be accredited? Or the reverse side, they represent veteran, and veteran says to the other attorney, I need to find somebody who's accredited so I can do something with my veterans' benefits. That attorney would then have to be accredited to send them to me. That's a problem. And the reason it's a problem is because then you've knocked out a lot of family law attorneys, perhaps elder law attorneys. You've knocked a lot of those people out of their business of practicing law. That's an issue. Move on to subdivision 3B, guarantee of benefits prohibited. A person providing veterans benefit services in exchange for compensation must not guarantee, either directly or by implication, that a veteran or a family member of a veteran is certain to receive specific federal, state, or county veterans benefits or any specific level, percentage, or amount of federal, state, or county veterans benefits. So if I do an initial review of a case, a potential claims appeal, and I say, okay, this veteran is at 30% and looks like bouncing it off of the factors in 38 CFR Part 4 that they should be at 70%. Did I just implicitly promise a benefit? That's a problem because that's what they're potentially retaining me to do, is take a guess as to what they might receive and determine if it's worth it to retain me. But did I just implicitly violate this section as written? That's a potential. And the only way to find out is in subdivision 4. It's an unlawful practice under 325F.69 and subject to the remedies provided in section 325F.70. So we're going to increase the number of lawsuits that may be brought because remember that there's a private cause of action established in section 325F.70 sub 3. And if that person's not happy that they got the 70% because they thought they wanted 100, can they then sue me? We don't know. And any civil penalty recovered shall be deposited in the Support Our Troops account established under section 190.19. So this person brings a private cause of action. They sue me directly. Let's say the court gives, I don't know, $10,000. That person may not see a dime because that's a civil penalty and it goes to Support Our Troops Fund, at least as drafted. I also want to talk about a couple other things. This bill as drafted steps on the toes of the federal VA even more. The federal VA is in charge of accreditation of representatives, 38 U.S.C. 5904. We're now saying, the state of Minnesota is now saying, oh, you have to be accredited, which potentially is fine, and then say, oh, in addition to all the requirements that VA imposes, you also have to do a written fee agreement. Here's the problem with that. The Minnesota State Bar doesn't necessarily require me to do a fee agreement. There's no requirement on the rules of professional conduct that I do a fee agreement. The federal VA doesn't require me to do a fee agreement if I don't want to get paid. So for instance, I have plenty of friends from my Navy service. And if they call me up and say, hey, Brian, I want you to do my claim appeal, man. I've talked to the VSO here maybe once in a blue moon. I don't trust them. I've gotten that call before. Under this bill as written, I have to say, you know what? I have to now do a whole fee agreement with you, even though I don't intend to take a penny off of you because I've known you for, 25, 30 years. But I have to do it anyway because the state requires it. That's a problem because it inhibits my ability to run my practice the way that I feel appropriate inside the bounds set by the Minnesota State Bar. And this committee really needs to think about that because when the initial bill went through in 2017, the District of Minnesota came close to saying that that bill was federally preempted. If the Minnesota State Legislature keeps going with these bills, there's a good chance that the District of Minnesota may actually go ahead and say this is field preempted, or it might be conflict preempted. And I'm talking specifically to the attorneys on the panel who might understand what those are. But long story short, the federal government has occupied the whole of the field. And what this committee is trying to do is step on the federal government's toes. And the Federal Circuit, the United States Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit, has been very, very plain in saying that the services provided by a VSO are not equal to those provided by an attorney. And that was done in Comer v. Peake, which is a Federal Circuit decision from 2009. So essentially what this bill is doing is pushing out attorneys and claims agents whose services are better than those provided by unlicensed and untrained laypersons and saying, this is what we want our veterans to be stuck with as VSOs. And I mention that because my firm gets calls pretty much on a weekly basis, if not more often, saying our CVSO recommended we talk to an attorney, or our VSO recommended we talk to an attorney. I'm in Richfield or I'm in Faribault, it doesn't matter which city. And when they tell me that, our standard answer is, we can't help you. We won't take a case in the state of Minnesota. I can only imagine the level of rejection Minnesota veterans must feel when they get that answer time and again because of bills like the one as drafted, the burden they impose on Minnesota veterans that aren't imposed on other veterans nationwide. I also want to answer one other question that was posed earlier. I do a lot of military sexual trauma claims. I do a lot of mental health claims. And there was a question posed about, is it ethical if I charge, is it ethical for an attorney to charge a fee to a homeless veteran? Let's be clear about what fees are. The veteran gets $100,000, $150,000, whatever their back benefit due is from a claim appeal. That's going back potentially 8, 9 years, maybe more, maybe less. And the licensed attorney gets 20% or 25% or 30%, gets some percentage of that back benefits award. And that's it. That's all we get. So if I've represented somebody for 6 years, 7 years, whatever it is, that's the slice I get. I just recently had this problem in a case I took for a Florida veteran, where I took them from VSO because she couldn't get the unlicensed and untrained layperson to contact her. She kept trying, and she found me and said, okay. I said, okay, I'll sign you up, here we go. She got about $150,000 in back due benefits, and I signed up for 20% of that. Is it ethical to take it? Yes. Because we're not taking from that homeless veteran anything that they have in their pocket at that moment.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes, sir.
We have one more testifier to go through and several more bills, so if you could just
Yes,
kind of wrap it up kindly. Thank you.
I also want to talk briefly about the about paid claims agents, or actually, paid claims agents. We have at the Department, they have at the Department of Veterans Affairs one whole page and 2 names on the second page of paid options, paid accredited options. That's it. When you take away paid options for disclosure statements, for whatever other requirements, you're taking away valuable tools in a toolkit. This committee has a laudable goal to keep these claim sharks, pension poachers, whatever you want to call them, away. But instead of using a scalpel, to quote a very famous movie, this bill as drafted wants to blast off and nuke the entire thing from orbit because it's the only way to be sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and last up, we have Benjamin Kraus, and we are kind of up against the clock here now a little bit, so if you could
I can go fast.
keep it succinct, that would be appreciated.
Hi there. My name is Ben Kraus. I'm here in my individual capacity. I own a small practice here in Minnesota. We stopped taking paid clients similar to Mr. Lewis and his law firm many years ago because of the current state of the law in Minnesota, where we feel it is so vague that it's dangerous. So we stay away from it. I've had many veterans ask me to represent them in the state of Minnesota, many of which were also referrals from other CVSOs, and I've had to say no. I myself am a disabled veteran. I had to go to law school to finally win my benefits after fighting with the VA for 10 years, more than 10 years, and I couldn't find an attorney to represent me. I want to point out a couple things that I agree with my client, my friend Brian Lewis back there, but I also want to say that I really like MDVA. I like what this does in the sense that it's a laudable goal. We should protect veterans where they're being taken advantage of, especially elderly and severely disabled. We're talking about disabled people. This law, as written, though, is untenable. I've previously recommended to the agency that it be rewritten, the entire statute. We're really talking about the unauthorized practice of law, which has been illegal in Minnesota since 1931. So we have kind of a situation here where it's the tail wagging the dog rather than the other way around. And in the legal profession, we have scalpeled around VSOs and CVSOs to allow them to help veterans in a cheap and free manner in Minnesota, but attorneys have been around for a very long time. I think it would do this committee some good, as well as MDVA, to take time to analyze this particular problem and consider it in the broader context of how attorneys can help. So that's generally what I have to say here. Really thank you for your time. We love what MDVA does. We love what CVSOs do, what VSOs do. I think that they do an invaluable service. It's something that I could not do because I don't have enough time, enough money, and enough manpower to take care of. Fortunately, in Minnesota, our taxpayers have come forward with the tax revenue to fund CVSOs and MDVA claims for veterans. On the other hand, this law gets into federal preemption problems, First Amendment problems, and it needs to be rewritten as it sits. Otherwise, it's probably going to end up in litigation sooner than later if it goes forward as written. Thank you for your time. I don't have anything else, but if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Thanks. That concludes testifiers, so we'll go to members. Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. Given the comments that have been made regarding time and other work to do, instead of asking some questions, I'll just make some statements and then I'll move on. The first question I would have asked is whether or not the Attorney General's office is pursuing any of these claim sharks or doing anything regarding any of the issues that are being talked about today, because that is one mechanism or one avenue that exists to go after and chase these bad actors down and make sure they're not taking care of veterans. Whether it's the AG or any other prosecutor out there in the state of Minnesota that can find these folks that they're breaking the law and take advantage of people to straighten them out or put it into it. It doesn't have to necessarily be a heavy-handed bill that clearly maybe isn't as well thought out as it should be. My second issue, and this kind of I think has to relate to some of the testimony that was shared by Mr. Lewis, is this bill was introduced on February 27th, 2025, 5 days ago. 2 of those 5 days were Saturday and Sunday. I don't subscribe to the philosophy of we're going to hear the bill and just pass it on to the next committee and keep working on it anymore, because I've seen that lead to really crappy legislation that actually becomes law. The committee to fix this in is this one. If it's not ready to move or it needs a lot of improvement, we should do it here. And that means maybe the bill gets tabled for the time being. We pick it up in a week or two, do some amendments that fix it, and then pass it to judiciary. I'm really not a fan of legislation being rushed through committee and actually not getting fixed or tweaked the way that it should be before it becomes law. And I got even more fired up as I sat here and listened to attorneys say we've actually actively stopped helping veterans because of past legislation that's been enacted, despite feedback. So I'm going to take a minute to just chill a little bit and give you the rest of my feedback on the bill, because I think, to be honest with you, we do have more agreement here than disagreement. We're trying to do something good on behalf of veterans, but I think there's more work that needs to be done with all the stakeholders involved to ensure that the bill that does pass or the legislation that does become law is the best it can be, has a chance to get feedback and tweaks from all stakeholders to ensure that at the end of the day, the veterans are being taken care of. Because I can tell you this, I'm a simple infantry guy, not the brightest bulb for a reason. March 17th will be 20 years of service for me. And I say that because I am talking to my brothers in arms who are dealing with these issues today and have been for years. And I think one of the most interesting questions, probably the most pertinent question we should be asking ourselves is, why do these veterans even feel the need to be pursuing these organizations to help them in the first place? It's because things are taking too long. It's because they're not finding resolution. And as a last resort, they're reaching out to other organizations who they think they can help, or honestly, their battle buddy probably told them, hey, this guy helped me out, or this gal helped me out, you should get in touch with them too. So I'm not being critical of the MDVA or anybody else. I appreciate the work that you do, but there's no secret in this country that veterans are not necessarily getting timely help, or their claims are being denied unjustly. And if we are going to put up barriers to resources that have proven to be successful in the past, that have helped veterans overcome these obstacles, then we are doing them a disservice. So before we go down that route, we better take the time to get this bill right, to ensure the unintended consequences aren't coming at the cost of our veterans and their family members, because if they do, epic failure. I'm a member of the VFW. I love you guys. I understand why you support this bill. I have a soft spot in my heart for the American Legion. MDVA, I already talked about you folks. Our veteran service officers, you're amazing. We need more of you. You do phenomenal work. But I think it's a collection of all of you and the other groups that do this and do it right. It's a collection of all of you that we need to make sure that every single veteran and their family member is taken care of. That's what we're hearing. So I would just respectfully ask that before we continue to move this bill or we get too far down the process, we push pause, take the time to get it right in this committee where we need to, and ensure that we don't pass a law that has unintended consequences that we're unable to overcome in the future. If that means that we're looking at a guarantee, an agreement that's required, caps on compensation, disclosure, regulating advertisements, that's great. Let's have those conversations, get everybody on board with it, and then pass the law. But I'm telling you right now, based on the 8 letters of opposition I have and the other phone calls and emails and outreach I'm getting from people who I know whose hearts are in the right place when it comes to serving our veterans, this bill isn't ready yet. And I don't want to move it on to another committee if we haven't taken the time to get it right in this one first. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, if I may respond.
Yes, sir. Senator Putnam.
Thank you very much, Senator Duckworth, for your passion, your conviction, and your dedication, and also your awareness that we all are actually in the same purpose. We're all working in the same direction on this one. We have more work to do. Now, the 5 days notice on this, I think, is a little bit precarious, because I know that you met with some people about 2 or 3 weeks ago about this issue. A lot of us have been talking about this for a lot longer than the bill point of introduction. So I hesitate to endorse the sense that this is rushed in any sense, because we've been having meetings about this for a month and a half, 2 months now. I appreciate that it still needs some more work, and I'm committed to doing that work. I've already discussed this issue with a bunch of advocates today about going back to work on some of the definitions. And our friends who brought us the bill at MDVA and the Commander's Task Force are totally aware that we have some tweaking to do here and there. But one of the things that I hope you realize from the testimony we hear is that we have people who want to tweak in different directions simultaneously, in addition to the bill itself, those being the sort of attorneys and then those people who are doing this work. They're not all on the same page themselves yet. So there is no unified opposition either at this point. That's difficult to characterize it that way too, because that's not exactly accurate based on what we've just heard. So I still am committed to still working this out. Your earlier concern about enforcement, I think that we actually save the state resources and difficulty, and veterans difficulty too, if we create a situation wherein folks are less likely to break these laws or to do these things or have these problems initially. If we set the rules right, we don't have to do as much work to correct people when they break them. So I appreciate your commitment to this issue and to these continuing conversations about how to make this as efficient and effective as possible.
Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was a comment made that there were numerous cases, and Mr. Klein brought up the fact that he espoused on one claim. But I have not, and I know my VSO in Wright County, and there's three of them there now, and I have not had any cases or claims or any comments and statements with my VSO, and I'm just curious, how many numerous cases that Mr. Klein brought up are there? Are there documentations other than the one story that was told? And what court? Was it district court? Was it Supreme Court? I don't know what cases you're referencing, but you brought up one story, and I'm just wondering, who were the VSOs that were involved with those numerous cases?
It looks like Mr. Quaddy has come up to attempt to answer your question. Go ahead.
I believe, thank you, sir, for the question. I believe you were referring maybe to my comments. Last name is Quad, Quaddy. What I was referring to was one story about an individual in the state of Minnesota that we were referencing to, and their experience in engaging with non-accredited individuals, or an individual that was not accredited, an organization or an individual. And that example that I gave was one of many. There's no way for me to put a number on how many individuals that we know at the agency. And I'm also going to step out and speak on behalf of the Minnesota Association of County Veteran Service Officers when I say that we hear these stories also from counties, that individuals are being approached, even in some cases in terms of advertisement in the state of Minnesota, from individuals that are within the state and individuals and organizations that are outside of the state of Minnesota. And they're seeking to engage with those individuals and have them sign agreements, fee agreements, that lock them into paying for these services, and the services are subpar. They are just subpar. And these are from individuals that have no access to VA systems. They have no access to VA information or the case information that would be referenced to do even an appropriate job at representing those individuals and their claims to the federal government.
So, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Anderson, Senator Anderson.
Mr. Quaddy, sorry for confusing you with the last name, but did these people then hire you or someone else to take them to court?
Typically, the individuals do then reassign the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs to represent them to the federal VA, and we move forward with that representation, even though they are still obligated to the previous agreement or fee agreement or contract that they have with the individual for pay services. And we move forward with that claim and represent them through what we consider the local process, which would be the regional office process, or the national process, which would be the Board of Veterans Appeals. Where I think I can maybe clear up some confusion when there is a reference to sending an individual to an attorney, a licensed attorney, to represent them to the federal government. That would be done primarily when that appeal is denied at the board and is then moving forward to the courts or the Court of Veterans Appeals at the national level. We do not represent, as the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs or non-practicing attorneys, claims at the courts. We do, however, have an agreement with the NVLSP group. It's a legal group out of Washington, D.C., where we reference those cases in the cases that we are representing, or the accredited representative for that law firm to review those cases and determine whether those can be represented at the courts.
So, Mr. Chair, Mr. Quaddy, how many cases have you taken to Washington, D.C.?
Mr. Quaddy.
Thank you, sir, for the question. In total, over the years, or I would have to get that information. I'd be happy to do some research on what those totals are, say in the past month or year or many years, as far back as we can.
So, Mr. Chair,
Senator Henderson.
Mr. Quaid or Quaddy?
Quaddy, yes, sir.
Quaid, you don't have the statistics right now, but yet we're bringing this bill forward to say there's lots of things that are happening in Minnesota, and we're going to Washington, D.C., but you don't know how many we're going to Washington, D.C. with. And we're bringing forward to supposedly tighten the law. And as already mentioned, why not get involved with the Attorney General here in the state of Minnesota?
Mr. Quaddy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the question. Our group, the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs and the Minnesota Association of County Veteran Service Officers, have been consulting for approximately a year with the Attorney General's office, and we have been talking with the office and bringing them cases that we were concerned with, and they are taking a look at, they're evaluating those cases currently. Now, when it comes to what we have driven toward NBLSP or the cases that we've referred for the courts, I would be happy to get that information for the committee and for yourself moving forward.
Senator Anderson.
Well, Mr. Chair, I would like a roll call on this bill.
Okay. Roll call requested, roll call granted. Senator Gustafson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just absorbing all of this and listening to everybody, I keep going back to this VFW information that I think is pretty valuable and maybe a really good chance for people to remember what it is that they just testified about. What they think a claim shark is an individual or company that charges a hefty fee to assist or consult veterans filing their VA benefit claims, which is illegal. So the bill is asking to provide veteran benefit services for compensation must be accredited by the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. And the reason for that is to protect the veterans. So I don't want it to seem like this is rushed. I mean, if the bill didn't come in time, that's could be for many reasons, but it isn't because people haven't been working on this. We care just as much about what happens to the veterans, their funding, making sure that they're getting the assistance and the resources they need. But this is coming from people who are also in that shared experience, and they do this for years and years. These things don't pop up because of a whim. It's because of work that's been going on, is ongoing, where veterans are being taken advantage of. And we hear from the testifiers in some very lengthy testimony, and some of it was hard to follow, but what I want to remind everybody from the testimony opposing this is that they are very clear on what is considered to be a claim shark. VA accredited veteran services organization these are not what a claim shark is. A VA accredited veteran service organization representatives like the VFW, VA accredited claims agents, VA accredited attorneys assisting with Camp Lejeune lawsuits who do not charge excessive fees. That's the piece right there, the excessive fees, because oftentimes if you look up any of the businesses that are listed on this VFW information, just do a Google search. Do a Google search and then hit news, and you will be shocked at what they have done to our veterans. So the point is that they're trying to protect us from that. Usually the tip-off is that they are asking the veterans to do the bulk of the work, sometimes almost all of the work, and then charging sometimes up to 5 times the fee that they would normally have to pay. So I think that, it has been vetted. There are groups who know exactly what's going on, who do this work, and know that the veterans are being taken advantage of. And instead of just sitting by and wanting to work on it more, they're asking for our help. I think we should hear them out, and I don't think this is something that we should delay anymore. So I just want to put it out there that there are a lot of people who did testify, and I know you're getting opposition, letters and emails, but let's listen to the people who testified for it in support, because I think they know what they're talking about too. So I wanted to just advocate for those people who have been doing this work a lot longer than anybody here sitting on this committee. They're asking for the help now. So thank you for this bill.
Senator Putnam, any comment on that?
I am in 100% agreement. In fact, I took a little bit of umbrage at the presumption from a testifier that our county veteran service officers are untrained and unqualified. I've seen no evidence of that, and we just go back to what Dr. Janigo said just half an hour ago. She's a perfect example of how trained and qualified some of these people are who do this work. We often say, like, you can't use a wide brush. That's a pretty wide brush. So I appreciate your reorienting us towards the fact that we all are working for veterans right now.
Senator Weisberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would Ray Colas like to come up to the front, please? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I spoke with people on both sides of this issue. Obviously, we all want to do what's best for veterans. And we spoke earlier this morning too, and there's, lots of moving parts, it seems like, and no one's in agreement. I met with Ray a little bit earlier. Now, Ray, you are a veteran yourself, correct?
I am not, but I do work for the organization.
Okay. So I thank you. So we spoke earlier, and on here it says Veterans Benefits Guide. They think that Veterans Benefits Guide is a claim shark. That's what this paper says. So I guess what I'm asking you is, you want to do what's best for veterans. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Mr. Colas.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chair. Yeah. So I just called you up here because you're here, and there's other people on here that testified that want to do what's best for veterans. And like Senator Duckworth said, there's eight against this bill. I don't think they're against. They want to help veterans and do what's best for veterans, but a lot of these are people who are veterans and design this because they're not being helped properly or in an efficient manner or fast enough, right? So somehow we need to come together on both sides, and I would agree with Senator Duckworth, maybe not move this forward yet, and let's tighten this up, and let's get this to where it needs to be before we move it forward. And I know you agree that, I can't talk, Senator Putnam, that, we want to do what's best for veterans. So let's all come to the table and figure out what that is, maybe before we go forward. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that, Senator Weisberg, and that's exactly the plan. Is we're going to keep having these conversations next week. In fact, we're going to get a bunch of people in the same room to iron out any remaining details.
Senator Duckworth.
So can I ask just one question to follow up on that comment?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I appreciate your stated open-mindedness to looking at tweaks and changes to the potential bill. To be fair, people approached me about it last week. I didn't see the verbiage until it was dropped. But I'll say this. So the conversations that you are going to continue to have, what specifically are you still open to dialoguing about, or what potential tweaks or changes are you looking at? Because we're getting a lot of perspectives here. The perspective that I hear every single day when I'm talking with folks is the perspective of the veteran that either A, has been denied a claim or denied a rating, or B, is waiting out there in bureaucratic purgatory for some sort of response or an answer. And what the veterans and their family members are telling us are these other organizations, when all else fails, has failed, they have no other option or resource, get them across the finish line and get the job done for them. And what this bill has the potential to do, and we've heard it from these folks, is take them off the field completely. So that's the issue I have, and I think most of it has to do with the accreditation piece, because when you talk about accreditation, organizations accredited, the organizations that are helping these folks aren't subject to the accreditation process. That's the big change that this bill would cause them to have to do, and potentially, exit the process altogether. And so I'm hoping that you can be a little bit more specific in what it is that you are open to in terms of changes, because if we ultimately see a version of this bill that didn't change or be modified at all, it's not going to be a good version.
Senator Putnam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Duckworth. I 100% agree. When we talked about this a couple weeks ago on the floor, you mentioned that accreditation was your concern, and I think that that's something that we're going to work on a little bit, is the nature and scope of that accreditation. And everyone should know this, everyone up here and everyone back there. It is not in any sense our intention to completely remove for-profit people doing this work. We just want accountability. That's it. That's the goal, and that's what we're working for. We're not trying to put anybody out of business. We're not trying to restrict the opportunities or choices that veterans have when they're in circumstances, when they need someone now to help them, and they're willing to pay for it. No problem with that. We just need to work out a way in the language to make sure that that's still okay, because our goal is that these people who are doing this work are skilled, attentive. Well, obviously, they're concerned about veterans, obviously. We want to make sure that they also have the capacity and that veterans who employ these folks have recourse in case things go south. That's what this is about. It's about accountability first and last. And there is no intention to put anybody out of business or to make this work onerous in any way, shape, or form. And I think, and this is why I still would ask members to move this forward to judiciary, is because I think that we're pretty close to that right now. And we've had a lot of conversations. We'll have a couple more conversations at the beginning of next week. I'm very confident that we'll get to a space where this works for veterans first, because that's why we're doing this.
Mr. Colas, you looked like maybe you wanted to add something into.
No.
Okay.
No, so
We're
we're
good.
good. This is recorded, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Chair. And for the record, John Kelly, Director of Government Affairs for the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs. So I also am a dumb infantry guy. That's why I brought my smart Navy corpsman with me. But what I would say is this. As Dr. Janago from the County Veteran Service Officer stated, there are claims being made about the ability to expedite claims through the process by non-accredited organizations. It is unclear to the Department of Veterans Affairs how a non-accredited organization can assist or expedite a claim that's going through the process. They don't have a PIV card. They cannot see this. Mr. Krause, other folks that testified here are VA accredited attorneys. They have that access. They understand the law. They have the ability to communicate and push. And so, again, like there's claims on the sheet and all, there's letters of opposition, and there's letters of opposition to this bill because these are the same folks that many of them are on the list from the National Veterans of Foreign Wars talking about claim sharks. So while the Department of Veterans Affairs is of course open to tweaks on this bill, which is moving in two places. It's moving standalone, and it's also moving in the governor's budget bill. So technically speaking, the bill is staying in the committee and moving to judiciary. I would argue that while the accreditation piece we're open to discussion, it is not clear to the department, and we'd welcome any of the testifiers from the non-accredited organizations to explain to us how it is that they expedite a claim when they have no access to where the claim is and have no ability to advocate legally on behalf of the veteran as they go through the claims process.
Mr. Colas.
Yes. So with the question that was raised, I will speak on behalf of one of those non-accredited entities. When we use the phrase that we can help to expedite the claim, it's obviously every claim goes through the same system at the VA. However, it's in terms of as we help the veteran to prepare the information that needs to be submitted to the VA. They don't have to wait weeks, months to have an appointment to begin the process. We also take a more holistic approach when a veteran presents some of their claims to us. So that's what is meant when it is stated that we expedite the process. And one other point of clarification I do want to make is as it applies to this VFW claim shark list, it does state, and as you've also, two of you have mentioned, Senator Weisenberg, and I can't see Senator Gustafson. It does say in our own words or in our opinion. So it is VFW's opinion as to what a claim shark is. However, it's not reflective of what federal law is. And with the 5 points that they make as to what a claim shark is, I don't believe we do any of those. So I want to make sure I put that for the record as well.
And Mr. Krause, I saw a hand. Did you also want in on this piece of conversation?
Thank you. A couple things. First, we just found out about this today, and so whatever a chicken scratch we were able to put together to try to get over here from our normal jobs, this is what we did. So happy to get in conversations next week. I do this as an advocate for a nonprofit as well as my own practice, and I'm a investigative journalist and I'm exposed to a bunch of scandals regarding the Department of Veterans Affairs federally. So I'm very familiar with most things related to the VA and how that works. The important delineation is that we do appeals work or appellate-related work for the most part. We also work on supplemental claims as VA-accredited attorneys. We do not work on, at least for pay, we do not work on initial claims for pay because that's precluded under the VA accreditation requirements. And so when Mr. Lewis and I talk, I want to point out that we usually are working on different things, sometimes before courts. One of the issues with this language is that I find to be concerning and offensive is the sense that it applies VA accreditation across the entire spectrum of appeals, whether it's at the VA, whether it's at the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit, or U.S. Supreme Court. So as the proposed legislation, if implemented today, you would have to be VA accredited at the Supreme Court, which creates a lot of different problems because the U.S. Supreme Court has their own requirements for working there, and you do not have to be VA accredited to charge a fee. And that's a totally different branch of the government. I, as an attorney, fall underneath the judicial branch in Minnesota, and I have my license under that branch. I do not fall under the jurisdiction of the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs or the governor. And so the way that the law is written, first of all, it was written pre-Appeals Modernization Act in 2017, and now it's bringing it forward into this amendment, but none of that language has been addressed. It's a totally different system. The VSOs had worked with the federal government to create the Appeals Modernization Act that was fully rolled out in 2017 through 2019 for certain parts of the VA, including what used to be called Vocational Rehabilitation and Employment, Chapter 31. So it's a very complicated system. And my position, as well as the position of likely Mr. Lewis, although I can't speak for him, is that there needs to be a significant consideration and potentially an advisory committee that sits down and talks about this. Because what CVSOs do, who are predominantly the authors of this legislation, as I understand it, is dramatically different than what I do as an attorney. We work with experts. We work with courts. We do a host of different things outside of the Department of Veterans Affairs to fight for the rights of our veterans. And we get paid a reasonable fee to do that. But it's not just a one-brush hit, as it looks like when you read 197.6091. And it's not written correctly. It's very flawed. I have talked with the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs offline directly about it. I have given them proposed legislation about it, none of which, of course, has appeared in what rolled out on the 28th or 27th. So we were rather surprised to look at it and have it come to a hearing so quickly. And I didn't have an opportunity to develop out my testimony the way that I would have liked, so we were a bit surprised. But nonetheless, here we are, and we're ready to work with whoever wants to work with us as VA-accredited attorneys. The Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs did not consult with VA-accredited attorneys before this current draft came out, as well as the underlying statute. Also, with respect to unauthorized practice of law, that's MnStat 481.02. All this is already illegal. It's already illegal. It's a misdemeanor in the state of Minnesota. It's been that way since 31, so however many years that is, 80 years. So we're kind of retreading turf that's already been addressed. I think it's really important to maybe look at the laws as they already are. If the agencies wanted to implement this, they already could do it. It's $1,000 a day per occurrence fine right now. And Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs, and again, I love what they do, but they're talking about these examples, anecdotal information about these veterans who've had problems. Well, if that's illegal now, go get them. We got an AG's office that says they're ready to do it. When I talked to the AG's office about a month ago, they were unaware that this legislation was going through. Now, that information to me may have been a mistake, or maybe the person I spoke with was misinformed. I doubt it. But this is rolling through in a way that seems unusual. We're concerned. We want to make sure that the VA-accredited attorneys have a seat at the table. The Minnesota Bar Association wasn't consulted, as far as we're aware. They weren't consulted last time either. So we're seeing this pattern. Notice it doesn't reference attorneys or lawyers in the statute, but when it went to litigation in I think it was 2021, the position seemed to be at the agency that attorneys do fall under it. Well, we're under the judicial branch, so I'm not sure what's going on. So anyway, that's our skinny. I want to just point that out. We didn't know about this until today. So it would be great to know about these things in advance and to have a seat at the table. I've been attempting to talk with the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs about this for many years. And our first meeting was last month, after this legislation was already, back from the revisor's office. So it'd be great to make sure that the people that handle appellate work are included in the dialogue. Thank you.
Senator Gustafson.
Sorry, quick question. I'm sorry, the testifier, if you could, sir, if you
Okay.
could stay at the table quickly. Sure. Really quick question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. What is the reasoning for you not getting accredited?
I am accredited.
So you are accredited?
I've been accredited for over a decade.
Okay, so this doesn't apply to you then?
It does.
Okay, and then remind me how, like, walk me through that. I thought you needed to, if you're accredited, does this not? you've
So
got-
the overall law requires that if I represent a Minnesota veteran for pay,
Okay,
I have to force my client, who is a non-attorney, to sign a disclaimer form under penalty of a $1,000 a day fine if I don't do that, saying that the work I do as a licensed attorney is akin to what a CVSO does, which is patently false.
Senator
follow up.
Gustafson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that. How long does it take to become accredited? What is the process like?
Mr. Kraus.
If you are, sorry, I apologize before for jumping out of turn. For me to become a VA accredited attorney, it was about 3 months because I had passed the bar and I already had a Juris Doctorate degree and an undergrad. So I'd already committed to 7 years of school and then passed the bar after 3 months of intense studying for 12 to 16 hours. So I didn't have a long wait to become VA accredited. As a claims agent, their wait time is up to 3 years right now, depending on who you talk to. It's, if you have a business, it'll put these guys out of business. And also to point out, what they're doing is different. Many of them are working on helping veterans with initial claims. They don't, as I understand it, accept agency. So the 3 Ps, preparation, presentation, and prosecution, may not apply to them. Right now, many of the folks, including veteran guardians, they have a disclosure that they already use. They're well inside of the Minnesota law, most of them. I can't do it because I don't agree with what it says, and therefore I feel it would be dishonest of me to use the disclosure form, so I've opted out of helping Minnesota veterans for pay. But what they do is different and unique, and I think it needs to be studied and appreciated, and to this point, I don't believe that it has been studied and appreciated. I think instead we have, again, I said this earlier, the tail wagging the dog. And in this case, I think we need to be very careful when we allow that to happen. And we need to have a analysis of this with an advisory committee of everybody involved, all the stakeholders, and to hear out, who does what when. Because there are people that are very confused about what they do. And there are some CVSOs that think that what they do is what I do, and it's not the same.
Senator Gustafson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No follow-up. I just, I sit on the Jobs Committee, I sit in state local gov, and I listen to committee members scrutinize every single dollar that goes to nonprofits or state agencies, and they should, right? We should be very mindful of where our dollars go, and this isn't state funded, so I get that. But I'm just struggling a little bit that why people would oppose a bill that is just making sure that we are watching the dollars that veterans are spending to receive their services. And we want to protect them and their resources as well so that they aren't being taken advantage of. And all of it should be a level playing field. And I just look at these services and this list of claim sharks. And again, I invite everybody to Google these companies and see what has happened. And it is unacceptable what they have done. And that's what we're trying to prevent. So I don't need any follow-up question. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. Thank you.
Sure. One last comment.
I
We'll
would
keep
love
it
to
brief.
respond. So I have asked MDVA for information about that in specific instances because right now all we're dealing with is anecdotes. And I have not yet received that information. So I'm concerned that we're working on anecdotes and not on hard facts, and I'd like to see hard facts. Second, when it comes to this VA accreditation, I've already talked to attorneys in wills and trusts and other areas, and they don't represent veterans, or they don't anymore because of the way the law works now. So I am opposed to it as written. I think the idea of protecting veterans is novel and important. But we also need to be mindful that we're chilling veterans' access to lawful attorneys in the state of Minnesota that no longer represent veterans or refuse to. And I think that that's my valid reason about why I oppose this as written.
Other members? If not, I would like to make a couple of comments too. First, to kind of dovetail off of Senator Duckworth's comments, it would be wonderful if our federal government gave veterans everything that they deserved, and none of you, you'd all be out of business if they actually did their job. So that would be a wonderful thing. Secondly, I think back to the time in the early 2000s, where there were lots of schools that were kind of like, hey, veterans, come here, give us your tuition dollars. And then they were taking those tuition dollars, and those veterans never left with any kind of degree. And we had to do it, we had to pass some legislation at the federal level to fix that because it wasn't right. And so we do want to make sure that anything that the veterans are due, that they're getting that and it's not going somewhere else. Thirdly, I also feel like there's a whole lot of things in here that really sound like the Judiciary Committee to me and are probably above my pay grade because it's a lot of lawyer speak. And I think that they would probably be the next stop that would be appropriate to deal with this. And then fourthly, I know from working closely with Senator Putnam that when he says he will continue to go with these groups and continue to work with them on to the next stop, that he is a person that means that. So that's my 2 cents. Senator Putnam, last closing remarks.
Thank you all for the vigorous conversation, the important discussion. This is an incredibly important issue, and it does boil down to simply that, Senator Kupek, similar to what Senator Gustafson said. We are trying to do our best to provide accountability and responsibility in a space where people are being exploited. I think that we have a responsibility to continue doing this work. It is work that obviously began in 2017 with the first bill that dealt with this issue. So suggesting that it's rushed is a bit of a stretch. We have been talking to people for a month and a half about this issue, which is a lot longer sometimes than people talk about issues here. And we're not done talking. That's what's key. Is we've got some more conversations to do. Again, trying to do the best we can for Minnesota's veterans because that's our job. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Senator Putnam, would you like to make the motion here?
I move that this bill be passed and referred to the Committee on Judiciary. I do not do that. Nick's telling me I don't do that.
To pass, oh, okay. It is recommended to pass to be referred to the full committee.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, if you could explain that, Mr.
Sure,
Chair.
because we are a subcommittee, this has to go back actually to us, to the full committee, and then from there it goes on to Judiciary, if I am correct in the path assumption.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Nick. That is the plan. Then, so the motion is then to pass it and refer it to the Agricultural Veterans Broadband and Rural Development Committee.
Okay, so that is the motion. There has been a roll call requested and granted, so Mr. Roth, oh, sorry.
Senator Putnam?
Aye.
Senator Anderson?
Nay.
Senator Dornick? Senator Duckworth?
No.
Senator Gustafson?
Yes.
Senator Kunesh?
She is on Zoom.
Senator Kupek?
Yes.
Senator Seeberger?
Yes.
Senator Wiesenberg? Senator Kunesh?
Yes. Did you get that?
Yes, thank you, Senator Kunish.
Thank you.
Okay, there being 5 yes votes and 4 no votes, the motion prevails.
We're going to keep talking about it. I'm serious about that. Thanks.
Thank you. I have a meeting request.
Senator Putnam, don't go anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
You're not done yet. Sure. Okay, Senator Putnam, you have Senate File 1452.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Senate File 1452 has to do with county veteran service officers, who we've just been talking about for a little bit. This bill increases the annual grant for the Minnesota Association of County Veteran Service Officers.
Excuse me. Oh, wait. Could you take the conversation out to the hall, please? Thank you. Continue, Senator Putnam.
Increases the annual grant for the Minnesota Association of County Veteran Service Officers from $100,000 to $160,000. It also amends Minnesota statute section 197.608 subdivision 6 to include a provision that allows for up to $60,000 of this annual grant for CVSO to be used to train technical assistance coordinators and for these coordinators to travel Minnesota counties according to specific areas of expertise upon request. Specifically, this additional $60,000 would be used to fund 3 positions: $20,000 for a coordinator to support women veterans, $20,000 for a coordinator focused on veteran suicide, and $20,000 for a coordinator helping veterans involved in the justice system. If any of these funds are from 2026 are not spent, they can still be used in 2027. That's the bill in its entirety, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Putnam, and I believe Ms. Janigo wants to come back and grace us again.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members, I'm Dr. Christy Janigo, the Legislative Chair for the MAC VSO. SF 1452 is a request of MAC VSO to increase its annual state grant funding by $60,000 to support its 3 technical assistance coordinators. When John Baker became MAC VSO's executive director last year, he recognized additional expertise was needed to fully serve women veterans, prevent veteran suicide, and support justice-involved veterans. As he was acclimating to his new role, he had conversations with CVSOs about the barriers to serving Minnesota veterans. Along with MAC VSO President Josh Benega of Lackaparle County, he identified the need for technical assistance coordinators willing to be subject matter experts to coach their colleagues across the state. I am the technical assistance coordinator for justice-involved veterans because I work for Hennepin County and focus on claims in the Veterans Treatment Court. I have a regular presence in the 4th District Veterans Treatment Court, presided over by Judge Sarah West, the oldest and by far the largest Veterans Treatment Court in the state of Minnesota, where I manage the veteran benefits matters of our participants. I've had some great results with those claims, and our court has a strong reputation of reducing recidivism. Last year was our first year of onboarding the tax, and our executive board identified the 3 individuals who would provide the expertise. We did this without funding, which was a limiting factor. With this funding, it's a small amount, but we can more thoroughly distribute our institutional knowledge across our membership base. We will be able to afford national training to deepen the technical expertise that we have for our coordinators. And in my case, that national training is through All Rise, an organization of treatment court professionals with a special track for justice-involved vets called Justice for Vets. And it's training for successful veterans treatment courts. Technical assistance coordinators also need to be traveling to other counties to provide assistance to other offices, some of which are hours away by car. So I could come to any of your counties to work with your CVSOs on your justice-involved vets. And let me further explain why these 3 areas were chosen for our technical assistance coordinators. Women veterans is the fastest growing category of veterans as more and more women are stepping forward to serve their country. Our issues are not always the same as men's and require a different approach. Military sexual trauma has impacted women veterans in such a way that PTSD now disproportionately impacts female veterans compared to our male counterparts. And suicide impacts the veterans community at disproportionately higher rates than the rest of the U.S. population, with estimates of around 17 to 22 veterans a day dying by suicide. And those numbers could be low because of how the reporting may vary by each medical examiner's office across the U.S. We can say with confidence that by now we've lost way more veterans to suicide, the war within, than in combat. And finally, justice-involved veterans are some of the most intensive cases any CVSO will work with because of the complexities in the population. Veterans who have gotten in trouble with the law often have found themselves in that situation because of underlying substance use disorder, mental health conditions, brain conditions such as TBI, and chronic pain from in-service injuries. Justice-involved veterans' personal relationships have also deteriorated, and some are currently experiencing homelessness. In this work, I've helped to save veterans' homes from foreclosure, have assisted homeless and justice-involved vets obtain permanent housing, have helped persuade veterans to finally seek the mental health services they desperately need, have assisted veterans to pay for vehicle repairs through grant funding so they can continue to hold down steady employment, and have given veterans a sense of validation when the federal government recognizes their disabilities through granting of compensation. For the women in our Veterans Treatment Court, military sexual trauma is often an underlying factor in their justice involvement. Some of the veterans I've helped were trying to become service-connected for years. decades in some cases. And they just needed someone relentless who would not stop advocating for them and who would support them along the way in navigating a very complex system. One of my favorite success stories is a veteran who was struggling with a fentanyl addiction. I first met him down at the jail where he was wearing an orange jumpsuit. He had tried for VA benefits a number of years ago, but had missed his compensation and pension exams because at that time he was experiencing homelessness and could not get there. I made a promise to him that he would make his C&P exams under my watch, and I once drove him as far as Wisconsin for an exam. Now he has a restart, is substance-free, is in stable housing with 100% permanent and total service connection, meaning he has free health services at VA, including dental, and his future children will have education benefits. This is public safety as well. We do reduce recidivism in our court. Chair and members, this work is a righteous mission, and with just a small amount of funding, you can support us in helping those who sacrifice so much for our freedoms.
Thank you. And that is the only testifier we have. Members, questions? Okay, seeing none, I want to thank you for the work that you do. This is one of those things where we talk about the wraparound services that everybody needs, that little extra handout, and this certainly falls within that bucket. Senator Putnam, any closing remarks?
Just again to echo your thoughts, Mr. Chair, that county veteran service officers do fantastic, wonderful things in our state. They're incredibly important. I think we should support them when we can.
Thank you. And with that, Senate File 1452 will be laid over for a possible inclusion. Senator Howe is up next, and I will return the chair back to Senator Putnam.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Senator Anderson.
Are we having a separate bill come out of this committee then to go back to the full committee? Is that how it's going to work, because you're laying it over? Is that how you're going to work that out?
Sure. I'll let Senator Putnam do.
Thank you, Senator Anderson. Could you reframe your question one more time for me, please?
Are you having a separate bill coming out of the subcommittee, and then that's going to go back to the full committee? Is that how you're going to work it?
Yes, Senator Anderson. So apparently that's structurally as part of our rules. Nothing can come out of the subcommittee itself. Everything we do has to then travel to the Ag Committee in its entirety.
Okay.
But that being said, as I've said all along, we will do everything we can to keep the two jurisdictions as distinct and respected and supported as possible.
Okay.
But just procedurally, because of that, apparently it's something we got to do.
Be nice to have it separate.
So, folks, we have two more bills ahead of us. Testifier friends, I'm going to ask us to be expeditious if we could, please. We've got 20 minutes, two bills. I got faith. We can do this. So the bill we have right now before us is Senate File 1930, Senator Howe, Continued Education Benefits Provision for Surviving Spouses. To your bill, if you could, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Does someone have to move it to get it in front of the committee, or?
Go ahead. We're good.
All right. Senate File 1930, members, simply provides that a surviving spouse of a veteran killed in the line of duty can maintain their educational benefits if they remarry. Currently, if a widowed spouse of a service member is receiving educational benefits through either the Minnesota Veterans Assistance Program or the Minnesota GI Bill, they lose those educational benefits if they remarry. These educational benefits can, of course, provide a life-enhancing opportunity to a surviving spouse, especially if they have children, after suffering a significant loss in service to our nation. These spouses should not be forced to choose between remarrying or finish their education. This is an earned benefit of our service members and their families, and remarriage should not constitute a reason for ending this benefit. So, members, we have, I've got Leah Patton and Christy Janego, who's been here, I think, the entire committee. So I do guess we do have an A1 amendment, Mr. Chair, if we could move the A1 amendment.
Sure. Okay, Senator Howe has an author's technical amendment.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the amendment.
Senator Kupek moves the A1. Senator Howe, do you have anything to say about it?
Basically, it deletes on page 2, line 25, whether unmarried or remarried, and insert regardless of the surviving spouse remarries.
That's better grammar, Senator Howe. I support it enthusiastically. Members, any discussion?
I'm glad you could pick up on that grammar, because I didn't.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Bill is amended. Now, we can pivot to our testifiers, if we could, please. Dr. Janigo, if you would please state your full name for the record, even though you're an honorary committee member at this point, and then commence your testimony, if you would, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Dr. Christy Janigo, American Legion Department of Minnesota Legislative Chair. I want to thank Senator Howe and this bipartisan list of co-authors for introducing Senate File 1930. Although this bill is not an issue specifically part of any of the platforms I'm advocating this year, the Legion at every level, from our local post to our national organization, supports efforts to assist surviving spouses and dependents of veterans across multiple areas. So other issues we're advocating to expand benefits for the families, including the surviving spouse's homestead market value, property tax exclusion, and that bill that we're working on, which we expect to be introduced by Representative Nora soon in the House Tax Committee, proposes changing the law to allow surviving spouses to remarry and retain the homestead market value exclusion benefit. We also hope this committee will take that bill up in a Senate file. And then we have another bill, HF 1033 and SF 189, that would exempt Gold Star spouses from vehicle registration fees, the same way Minnesota exempts 100% permanently and totally disabled veterans from those fees. So in the same spirit, this bill is a simple bill allowing surviving spouses and certain eligible dependents of veterans who died as a direct result of that military service to retain their education benefits regardless of marital status. We believe veterans who passed on would want their loved ones to find happiness in their absence as well as retain access to their benefits. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Janigo. Ms. Patton, if you please state your full name for the record and commence your testimony when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Leah Patton. I am the Executive Director of the Joint Religious Legislative Coalition. So the JRLC is a nonpartisan statewide coalition formed through the partnership of our 4 sponsoring organizations, the Islamic Center of Minnesota, the Jewish Community Relations Council of Minnesota and the Dakotas, the Minnesota Council of Churches, and the Minnesota Catholic Conference. And as people of faith, we get together, decide what we have in common based on our faith's values, and then we come and advocate for that here at the Capitol with all of you. So about a year ago, we started looking into areas of state statute where benefits change or reduce based on if you get married. So as an institution, marriage is highly beneficial, and data suggests that marriage results in better long-term economic and well-being for families of all sorts if marriage is what they choose to do. So we believe that marriage is a highly individual choice, and that you shouldn't have to choose between getting married to the person that you love and maintaining your government supports, especially when there are potentially kids in your household that are impacted. So we brought this bill to Senator Howe. He immediately understood the importance of it, and I don't really have much else to add on to what he already said. So
Thank you, Ms. Patton. Very helpful. Members, do you have questions, comments? Nothing but enthusiasm, Senator Howe. Do you have a final statement?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and it seems odd, I'm the only one on this bill that isn't a member. So Senator Kunesh, Senator Putnam, Senator Gustafson, and Senator Duckworth are all co-sponsors of the bill. So all I need is one more vote, folks.
Thank you very much, Senator Howe. Senate File 1930 as amended will be laid over for possible inclusion. Thanks very much, folks. Our last bill for the day is Senator Farnsworth, Fishing with Vets Grant Appropriation, Senate File 1782. Senator Farnsworth, if you would please, Mr. Stearns and Mr. Colson, if you would please both come up to the table as well. Gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to be as efficient with your testimony as possible, hopefully in the 3-minute territory. If we could do something like that, that would be great. To your bill, Senator Farnsworth, when you're settled.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. Also, thank you to Senator Gustafson for signing on to this good bill. Senate File 1782 would provide funding to the organization Fishing with Vets to continue their mission. Fishing with Vets is a nonprofit organization with a mission to provide veterans with an opportunity to fish some of the Midwest's premier fishing destinations. The veterans are paired with guides who are some of the Midwest's best fishermen women. The main goal of their events, I should say, Mr. Chair, is to create lifelong memories and friendships for veterans. These trips are offered to veterans free of charge and can provide experiences that are truly life-saving. With your permission, Mr. Chair, I have some testifiers who can tell you more.
Thank you, Senator Farnsworth. Mr. Stearns, if you would please state your full name for the record and commence your testimony when you're ready.
My name is Bob Stearns. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. I'm the Director of Operations for Fishing with Vets. I've been at the organization now since 2018. When I joined the board of directors, we were running about 7 trips a year. Currently on the docket for 2025, we have 22 trips. We've expanded from running about 100 veterans a year to 250 veterans a year. And we're just trying to keep our trajectory flowing in the positive direction. We've received most of our funding through our own fundraising efforts. We have a Mudfest ATV ride in Chisholm, Minnesota every year in September in honor of 9/11. We also run the Veteran Heroes Softball Tournament in Wadena, Minnesota. That generates about $30,000 for our organization, and the other $70,000 that we allocate for our budget is just contributions from private entities, companies, and just supporters of our organization. The extra $25,000 would go a long way in helping us continue serving veterans in the state of Minnesota. We're on, like I said, an upward trajectory. We had 183 veterans apply for our Red Lake trip in early January, which is the highest number of veterans who've ever applied for one of our trips. 78 of those are veterans that had never been on a trip with us before. Those numbers keep going up time and time again, and we keep trying to offer more trips, but we run out of time too. We're an all-volunteer board, all-volunteer staff, all-volunteer guiding. Everything we do is volunteer. We have no paid positions on our board. Even our lawyers are pro bono. So we appreciate everybody that gives to our organization, and we're just looking for a little help to keep the trajectory in a positive direction. Of that $25,000 that we're requesting, we're hoping for $5,000 to help us with a little bit of training, dealing with mental health crisis, being a little bit more efficient in that manner. We are seeing more of that as our trips increase. $20,000 would be allocated for approximately 5 trips, possibly 6, depending on how the economy treats us in the next couple of years. And that would allow us to take another 100 to 120 veterans out. Our average cost per veteran on every one of our trips is about $200 for the weekend now. And that's doubled in the last 5 years. We used to be able to do it for 100. So thank you for your time. Thank you for hearing my testimony. Mr. Chair and the committee, we appreciate you.
Thank you for your testimony and for the work you're doing, Mr. Stearns. We appreciate it. Mr. Colson, if you could please state your full name for the record and commence your testimony when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Committee members, thank you for having me here. My name is Jeremy Colson. I'm the president of Fishing with Vets. I am a co-founder of it as well, back to 2014. Just to kind of give you a small history of what our organization has become. We're an organization of 100 small wins, or I should say hundreds probably, actually. When we first started this organization, it was simply a social media post where somebody would have an open spot on their boat and asking if a veteran wanted to join them for a day of fishing. Guides caught on to what we were doing. They started offering a guide trip for a veteran and their +1. People started noticing and started donating money to us. $5, $10, $20, $100. We finally saved up about $1,100 to take some veterans up to Lake of the Woods. And we sat there with the debit card of Fishing with Vets and our own personal one, sitting there waiting to pay for this event. Like I said, hundreds of small wins that we've had to get us into the position that we are today. I always make the comment, 10 years ago, I never thought I'd be in this position. It's certainly not here. Even a week ago, if you had asked me, I'd be sitting here right now, I probably would have chuckled at you. But yeah, I appreciate everybody here. I appreciate the bill that's being forwarded to the committee here. And thank you for your time, Mr. Chair, committee members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Colson. Mr. Knudsen, if you would please state your full name for the record and commence your testimony when you're ready.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chair, chair members. My name is Ron Knudsen, and I am one of the lucky veterans that have been chosen to go on one of these trips. What do they do? They actually rebuild that dormant fire. Down inside that us veterans have lost. We leave our team behind and we start a life. where our families don't know what a veteran goes through. I became divorced, was in a really horrible motorcycle accident, and sat day after day watching the paint dry. And I got a computer and punched up fishing with a veteran, and these guys popped up. And I just took a chance. How am I ever gonna fish again? And I immediately got a response. You're coming fishing with us. And my biggest fear was, I'm handicapped. How am I ever gonna get into a boat? And the funny thing is I was so worried about ruining the guy's boat because it was fiberglass. And I was worried that my socket was gonna mar his fiberglass boat. And he's like, don't worry about it. It's a $150,000 boat. I'm gonna ruin your boat. And he's like, don't worry about it. So we got in at the dock, and I don't wanna say anything and impose on anybody, but we went out fishing. We come back to the dock. I'm sitting all the way at the back of the boat, and the other guy gets out and grabs the truck and backs the trailer in, and the boat owner is standing up by the windshield and brings him back. And I'm not saying anything, but it's easier for me to get out at the dock versus trying to get out on the side of the boat up on the landing, because how am I gonna do this? I'm gonna fall, I'm gonna break my neck, whatever. And he pulls the boat out, and then he turns around and he's like, oh my God, we forgot about Ron. Now what are we gonna do? So we drive all the way up, and all the veterans are sitting there, and they're all like, oh boy, how are we gonna do this? Pulled up, and veterans, they ran over, got a picnic table. 3 veterans jumped inside the boat. 3 were on the fender, 3 of them were on the table, and it was like a well-oiled machine. They picked me up, they lowered me over, and they dropped me into my socket. And one guy turns around, he says, you ever come on one of these trips, don't ever worry about how you're getting into a boat. That's what these do on this trip. You were a brother in the service. You're a brother back out on these trips. And that's what fishing with vets do. They rekindle that fire for that brief moment. You get to relive that life. The other story I want to tell, Jeremy and I are standing out there. Jeremy and I were talking. I said, hey, I was stationed over in Okinawa, Japan. He's like, what? I was in Japan. Oh, when were you there? I was like 96, 97, 98, 99. He's like, well, I was there too. He and I probably had lunch, passing each other's shoulders, and we never knew it. That's what this organization does, and if it wasn't for them, that number 22 stands for a reason. I could have probably felt dormant to that number 22, because that's where I was in my life. I have now become an active volunteer with them, with my wife. So every year we get together for their biggest fundraiser, and my wife and I are part of that day and that week with them. I can't thank them enough. And I thank you guys for doing what you guys have done today, if this passes. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Knudsen, not just for your service, but also for your strength in testifying with us today. Sometimes it's hard to be honest, so I appreciate that you were. Members, Senator Wiesenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you guys for your service. I would like to make an amendment to the bill that Senator Farnsworth requires us to get involved in that softball tournament, so. That's all.
Members, any other? Senator Gustafson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really quick, I just want to say thank you for coming in, and I'm very proud to be a co-author of this, and this sounds like a really wonderful thing. And I agree, there's nothing like a day in the lake just to go fishing. I don't even care if I catch anything. It's just so peaceful, and it's just so wonderful to have that. And, you know, my grandpa came home from World War II, and he wasn't the same. And I think if he would have had stuff like this in his life, it probably would have helped him a great deal. So thank you for everything you do. Really appreciate you.
Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are you two gentlemen Marines?
I was Navy.
You're Navy? Yeah. My uncle was probably in Okinawa with you.
Really?
Thanks much, members. No, I don't see any other comments or questions. I want to say thank you to Senator Farnsworth for doing the work to make this bipartisan and bringing it before us. I appreciate that a great deal. Do you have any final closing statement?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I just want to thank you and the committee. This is a good organization. Veterans get to do this for free, and there's nobody on staff, so none of the funds would go to be paying for salaries. It's just going to go to help veterans. So thank you, Mr. Chair and committee.
Thank you, Senator Farnsworth. Senate File 1782 will be laid over for possible inclusion. Members, that's the end of our business for today. Coming up on Wednesday, we will have agricultural stuff. So Senator Gustafson, Senator Kupek, Senator Lang will all talk about various provisions that are related to fertilizer and water quality. We will also reconvene our conversation, hopefully a very quick one, relative to Senate File 1894, as it needs one last chat before it can go to judiciary. That's all. We're all done. We're adjourned.